Thank you.
The good thing, Bob, is that looking at the people here, they've all got big, large wallets. So I think with the exception of me, you're all good.
That's great. Well, I'm really happy to be here. I'm always honored to be able to do these, especially for you guys in the UK. This is great, and we'll try to help you learn a couple of things today. I think we were here earlier, and you know all about my deal when we were with the Who and Humble Pie and Peter Frampton and all that. All my good friends, still good friends with most of them, but we're going to get into some real nut turning things today, as I call it, where we're going to help you with adjusting things. So when you get ready, let me know and we'll kick her off.
I think we're ready.
Yeah.
Yep, we are poised.
All okay?
Okay, well, let me get over the other side
On a motorbike.
here. Okay. I never know what to call these things, but let me change my microphone here. I never know what to call them. I have all kinds of different titles, but optimizing your signals is one of them, and that's what we're going to get into today. Just a couple of minutes about the fact that where I started. I really started in 1952. My parents bought me a Hammond organ, which was quite expensive, but right across the street from where that organ came from in St. Louis was Walter Ash Radio. And my lessons would be an hour or so long. And then I had to wait for my mother to come pick me up. I'd go across the street and she'd always pick me up at the front door, Walter Ash Radio. Well, that kind of put a little bit of spark in me. And I went on to get my license. In 1956, I became a technician, which means everything above 50 megacycles. And I joined ham radio at the right time. It was the start of the largest sunspot cycle. And hey, I didn't realize it. Wow, this isn't going to be forever. But I never had a desire to upgrade at that time. The Harvey Wells you see there is still with me. It's right down there on the air. I'm on the air every morning, usually 9 to about 10:30 on 3885, and using the Harvey and all the other things. But I also, because of that organ, I learned to play the organ pretty good. And when I was 14 years old, I got a job making a lot of money as a 14-year-old playing in some restaurants. I had a 54 Plymouth convertible, and I was only 15 years old, but I had a special license that I could drive. At that same time, I became the organist at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. And what's so important about this is the fact that that organ hadn't been played in 20 years. And the organist there, Stan Can, he was quite a celebrity in the organ world. He hired me to help him. And so we got together and away we went. We had to tune and voice all of these pipes. There were about 3,500 of them from 1 inch to 35 foot. That taught me how to listen. And a lot of people don't listen, they just hear. But playing that great Fox organ and making some pretty good money, I was able to learn a lot of things, and especially how to listen. And we're going to get into that again. Just remember, I talked about listening. It's a mental process. Hearing is just, oh, I hear you. Listening is mental, where you dissect what you hear, all of the different harmonics and so on. Well, I was on the air for just a couple of weeks, and I heard this crazy signal. It was terrible. I thought, what is wrong with this guy's audio? Came back the next night, and there he was again. I thought, man. And I happened, you understand, I was just a ham for a couple of weeks. I didn't have all of the things together with that receiver, an SX99 Hallicrafter. I pushed the BFO button. And what did I hear? A voice. It came popping, and I'm going, wait a minute, that's some of that single sideband stuff that I've been listening and reading about. Oh, but not on 6 meters. It was barely on 20 meters in 1956. So I called him. I was very nervous, but I called him and he came back. Well, it happened to be K0DGE, who was the chief engineer of CBS KMOX radio, a 50,000 watt clear channel right here in the middle of the US. And he took me under his wing. I would visit with him each night I was on the air, but he invited me to come and see him one day. He said, you're in St. Louis, you have a little time in between the shows. So that's what I did. Larry taught me how to build. He taught me how to build a single sideband transmitter, but little did I know it was just one of the very first VHF sideband stations, next to Larry, of course. And we built a kit, the 10B transmitter, Central Electronics. He also had me purchase a Millen grid dip meter, which I still have. I've got a blank chassis and a 6U8 and some crystals, and we built a 36 meg oscillator. What do you have when you have 14 megs out of the transmitter and a 36 meg? Bingo, you're on 6 meters. And I thought the best thing I could do at this point was get some antennas. And my loving parents, they were absolutely incredible. They allowed me to do about anything, but it didn't cost them anything because I was making quite a bit of money as a kid and I spent it all on radio. That's okay. That's a 110-foot Roan with a J-beam, a wonderful J-beam on top for 2 meters. That's a Telerex, 36-foot long Telerex. And I had a Motorola dealer and a contractor that had booms and cranes and all that. They put it up. For goodness sakes, a 15-year-old kid wasn't going to do that. But my parents were very happy that I had somebody to do this and I could do it. A year later, on the other side of the house, we put up another 50-footer with a pair of 2-meter Telerex. They were 36-foot long. Notice I have one vertical and one horizontal. Pay attention because we're going to really get into this. It was all about phasing. The joke of this was the Motorola dealer, he brought a TA33. He said, you're going to need this someday. Well, I never did use it. I had taken it down before I needed it and got my general and extra later on. We'll get into that. But at this point in my life, I started messing around. That the Fox had thrown out some big cabinets, huge speaker cabinets. And well, hams, we don't throw anything away. So I started playing around with speakers and I built a sound system, not just a little sound system, a big sound system. And I had built a 30-inch woofer. I came from an Electro-Voice Patrician hi-fi cabinet. And I built a bass amplifier, which ended up being very famous. Bass players from all over the world would call me and rent that for their tours. But about this time, my life changed. I got a call from Paul Klipsch. He was the father of the folded horn, and he was a pioneer of the high fidelity audio movement. And I answered the phone, and it was Paul. He said, I want to come and see that 10,000 watt PA you have. Because at that time I had built the system for the Who, and we'd been on the road with the Dead and Humble Pie and Frampton and all those guys. Well, he came over, he flew over in his Bonanza airplane, and it was an incredible day. I figured he was going to cut me off at the knees, but not at all. It's like, why did you do this? How come you did that? And where'd you go to school to learn this? I didn't go to school. I barely made it out of high school, just enough to graduate. I was too busy. I was playing the organ, and I didn't need all that. I had my focus on what I was going to do in my life, and it was going to be the theater organ. Little did I know the ham radio was another huge thing in my life. Well, he took me down to his home that night. We jumped in his Bonanza and flew down to his a lab. It was an old telephone exchange building that had been vacated. It was on 28 acres. And one of those pictures shows a plexiglass model of his famous K horn. It was a corner horn. But Paul and I became really good friends. I made many trips down there. Went home with Jeff Beck, wanted a monitor system, and I was the first guy to do monitors. How come I could do that? Phasing. We're going to get into that. And Heil Sound brought monitors to these stages. But Paul, he sat me down and started really getting me into it. He said, you need to study what happened in the 1920s with the telephone system. You see, in 1920s, early 20s, they put up 2 wires. They started in New Jersey. And every 50 miles across America were relay stations. They kept the frequency up, the voltage up. Everything was fine. The audio was to be linear. When they got to the other end of the wire, this is what they heard. It wasn't quite what they determined it was going to be. It was totally different. It wasn't linear. It didn't have any articulation. But yet, as they looked at all of the charts across America, it was flat. What happened? Why did this happen? So what they did is they got together with some of the engineers at Bell Labs. Actually, there were 4,000 of them. They were put on this project to see what happened to the audio because it was all linear. Everything was there. Why do we not hear that? Why is it so difficult? And so when they listened to it, it was all of the articulation was gone. So the 4,000 scientists got involved and they discovered that there was a loss in frequency through the lines and all of the couplings that they had to do on those many, many thousands of miles. Well, what are they going to do about it? Well, they also found out that the human ear had a problem. So they took their 2 leading scientists, Dr. Harvey Fletcher and Dr. Weldon Munson. We owe great gratitude to Fletcher Munson because they figured out that none of us, no human, hears flat. And if you want to hear flat, here's flat. And as you notice, it's a little bit difficult to understand, but everything is flat. We had to do something. Well, they determined from a graph that the human ear was very, very non-forgiving. And you'll notice an interesting thing at the top of that chart at 110 dB, it's almost flat. That's why kids like to listen to music loud. They hear all of the top end, they hear all the bass, they hear all the vocals. It was all super duper okay. But look down here where you're listening today at 10 or 20 dB of level, like a ride at Disneyland. What they really discovered that means so much was in order for the human to understand the spoken word, we needed to have a 2.5K rise. 2.5K is a sweet spot. And you'll notice that is the graph of the telephone system. From 300 to 3,500, usually what they were running. But it was not flat. They rolled off that low end because the low end does nothing. Does zero for articulation. The fact it covers it up. And that 2.5K was just wonderful. because it brought things to life. And what I'm going to do is I'll prove to you. Here we are back to flat. And so for all of those that say, well, I need a lot of bass. Well, do you? You have a lot of bass. Well, good for you, but wow, that just really muddies it. Well, I'll put the 2.5 in there, Heil. So I did. But guess what? It covers it up. All I'm going to do, I should put a camera on this someday. All I'm going to do is turn one control. That control is a 2.5. This is a parametric equalizer, which we're going to really get into in a minute. And I can change the frequency of that filter. And I'm going to take out 2.5K. And now pay attention, listen, mentally dissect what you're listening to. When I take the 2.5 out, it's very, very hard to understand. The F and the S, the essence of sound is simply not there. So now we're going to put it back. And when we do, we have our essence of sound back. It's sparkling. It's shining. Those S's are right there. And it's so important in the English language that we have that particular frequency. And so I learned an awful lot in those beginning years with Paul. He taught me so much. But he also said, you need to study the history of the equalizer. Because now that they had discovered that problem, they had to figure a way to correct those frequency losses and increase the important mid-range. The term equalizer was born in 1920. But the way they had to do it was very different, because ideally the system's net frequency response would have an equal response to all frequencies. Thus, the term equalization was born so we could increase or decrease things. But they had to do it to the telephone system. There was no buttons to turn. There wasn't anything. So they did it with high pass filter. Very simple. There's the equation. You figure out what frequency you want to boost, and that capacitor, the audio full range, goes into that capacitor, and the lows are taken to ground. Where the knee is, where the roll-off starts, depends on the size of that resistor and the size of the capacitor. Well, they also had a low pass, and that's kind of the reverse. When the full range audio comes through, you have a resistor, but the highs are going to go to ground. Depend on the value of those two components, what's going to happen. So they figured it out, and they got the telephone all scrambling and working great, and it sounded wonderful because that's what the frequency looked like and still does today. Well, there was a young chap, God bless him, John Volkman. Look how young he was. He was working at RCA in the 1920s. And what he did for them was work in their motion picture playback systems arena. You see, the talkies were coming in the late 20s, and they had to do something. They absolutely had to do something to keep the articulation up on these big screens. So what he did, he used passive RC filters of different values so he could change that response and figure out what he could solder in. And this is kind of what he did. He built several different low-pass filters, several different high-pass filters, and he could select which ones he wanted. I guess he could do it by just soldering a bunch of capacitors or resistor, but this allowed him to select what he needed. Then he could make it happen. Well, the astonishing part for many is that that was the end of equalization throughout all of the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, up until the late 50s. hi-fi came into being. And the hi-fi equalizers were pretty much no more than what John had done. You had equalizers, but they were minimal, but we had them in our early hi-fi units. I had several of them and didn't realize how poor the EQ was. Now think about this. There was nothing done until 1967. 1967. What happened there was a company by the name of Longevin. They built studio equipment, mostly mixers. They came up with the very first production equalizer using slide controls, and you could vary it. Little knob, there's two of them there together. That knob at the top, you could select 15K, 3K, 5, and then you could notch it or boost it. And that was a revolution. Oh, man, that was something special. They built a console, mixers. You see two of them in this console. They were 8-band or 8 mic inputs. And up at the top in the extreme right corner was their equalizer. What you're looking at was a mixer that Heil Sound built. I had a carpenter build the woodwork. I bought a pair of these AM4s, which gave us 16 channels with a compressor, the 2 meters above it, limiter compressor, and the equalizer. And that equalizer was amazing. I would unload this gear, and before we could ever get it set up, the bands and their sound men would come scrambling to see it. It was something no one had ever seen before because it was just a year old, if that. But being a ham, I'm looking to things that we can make work and really work great. And that was really a beginning of a lot of things for us. That mixer was used by a lot of our bands, and Who and Grateful Dead and all the Joe Walsh, many. But a couple of years later, Daniel Flickinger designed the first parametric EQ. What do we mean by parametric? You see, with a standard equalizer, the engineers figured out what those frequencies were just by playing, experimenting, understanding audio. But all you could do as a user was either boost it or cut it. Well, he said, no, we're going to make it parametric so we could change the parameters of the frequency of that filter. There are 3 of them here. The one on the left can get to 550, so on. You select that one. The mid one, from 15 to 300 to 3K. And then there's a concentric knob and you can plus or minus that. So you can select the frequency and you can change the parameters of all. This is one that came out later. Every broadcast station in America has a Symmetrix 528E. Notice, because this is very important, it comes back when we start talking about Yaesu. There are 3 filters here. Each one of those filters are identical. You are the engineer. You set the frequency. The one on the left, that first filter, I set at about 150 hertz. The next is the octave. How wide do we want that to be? One, I set it at about 2 octaves. And the last one is cut or boost level. I boosted. I don't want all that low end. The next one, guess where I put it? 2.5K. And I wanted it 2 or 3 of the bandwidth. And I boosted that son of a gun to 15 dB. Let her have it. the last one set at 6K, a couple of dB of bandwidth, and plus it about +3. This was for a recording session. Ham radio, we don't need it that wide. We're going to get into that later. You see that octave, the audio bandwidth, this is what's happening there. Audio bandwidth, that refers to the difference between a lower frequency, that on the left where the red hits the zero line, and the higher one. That is the bandwidth. The green one is narrower, and the blue one's much narrower. Well, I had learned all of this and practiced it as one of the reasons that Heil sound become predominant in the sound reinforcement business, because we were doing things and I didn't know it. I didn't pay attention, but we were doing things that no other companies were doing. Thank you, Paul Klipsch, to guide me to this. And I would always be able to do things because I was a ham radio operators. We can do everything. We really can. And we don't throw anything away. Oh my gosh. That's when I heard the Fox were going to throw out those big bins. I said, don't do that. I was off the air for 12 years. So I was in your country. I lived there about on and off for about 4 years. Lived at the Marble Arch Hotel. We had a rehearsal hall, and we would rehearse things and set the sound systems together and all that. Had a sister company, IES, International Entertainment Systems, in London. And our systems were parallel. They were exactly alike. And the connectors were all alike, 90-pin Hubbles, a lot of those. And so when David Hartstone would bring, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer was one of his accounts. When he'd come to America, he'd use our stuff. And when we went over there for the Who or Pi or whoever, we'd use his stuff. We didn't have to transport it all. So we spent some time there, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But I was off the air those years. I finally, in 1980, I said, okay, see you later. Punk rock came in and many other things went on in the music industry. It kind of slowed down. I said, bye-bye. I got back on the air and I was absolutely freaked out. What happened to my great Art Collins articulate audio? What are you talking about, Heil? Guys would say to me. So I had it. My first, I still use my KWN2 when I got back on. And I was hearing these terrible signals. What do you mean, Heil? They're really good. No, this is what they sounded like. And I'm going, no. What was this? I couldn't believe these signals were on the air. I couldn't believe it. But listen to this one. Aha. And that person was probably a contest operator or somebody that knew how to take care of his audio.
Thank you. Copy 3 Alpha Sierra Delta.
And so I'm going to myself, I have a job to do. Whoa. By then I had gotten my general license and my advanced and then the extra. And I'm running all over the bands and I'm just freaking out. I got to tell you, because I did learn to listen and I just couldn't live with it. It was time for me to borrow some of the experimenting from John Volkman. You remember that? He was the guy that built the first equalizer. And I was so happy, so blessed that Paul Klipsch guided me to these studies. So what I did is I built an equalizer, the EQ 200. And I didn't realize at the time, because I'm just building things, but it was the first equalizer ever in ham radio. It was very simple because over the year or two that I got back in, I discovered 160 hertz. We're going to do that first filter. We can plus it. No, I don't want to do that, but we could. We want to notch that low end. But what's the second one? Oh man, if you guys and gals don't know what the second one is, I did a poor job earlier. 2.5K plus that, baby. I want articulation. And it was really amazing because so many guys, I don't need no EQ. Get out of here. Well, you guess what? We all need equalization. I just proved that to you a few minutes ago. But none of the ham radios had equalization. This thing became quite something. I wrote an article, and it was published in QST, July 1982. It received the cover award. It was the lead article. They called me after they received it and said, whoa, this is a revelation. There's never been any EQ, so we're going to really promote this, and they did. The problem I had is I wrote the article as a do-it-yourself, had all the diagrams, very easy to read, had all the parts there, but I made a mistake. I put my phone number in there. All kinds of people calling me. We don't want to build this. Well, 2 years earlier, I had closed the plant. I had 35 people working there, building all these sound systems and mixers and power amplifiers and all of that, and the famous talk box. We had closed that plant. It was closed 2 years. But I called back a couple of my really good solder gals, and we opened up a few front pieces of it and started building equalizers, which was the front door to Heil Sound being in the ham radio business. But just having the equalizer isn't all to it. You have to be able to adjust your radio. And I discovered a lot of people didn't even know how to set their mic gain. They'd get on and, hey, Bill, how's my mic gain? Well, you need a little more. And Joe said, no, I don't think you need. And it's like, oh, come on, guys. Because the manufacturers didn't do something right. That ALC meter is exactly what you need to set your mic gain. It isn't, oh, in the manual it says hook the mic gain, turn the mic gain to 45. No, it depends on your voice. It depends on your microphone. It depends on how you use the microphone. You have to set mic gain with ALC to make sure it's not all bouncing in the red, that it barely hits the red on some of the peaks. But nobody ever told them that. The transmit bandwidth, that's another interesting thing. Transmitters have variable bandwidths, and you have to be able to set the bandwidth. And that's the very first thing you do when you sit down at a radio. Before you do anything else, set the bandwidth. And some don't realize what a difference it makes. Take a listen. This is very, very important.
This is K9EID, and we're transmitting at 2.9K with.
This is 2.4K, and as you note, it's nice and it's articulate, but the whole bottom end drops out because of the filter network. We'll go back to 2.9.
Now this is the 2.9, and it's much smoother, has much more fidelity.
There's no question. And I get guys once in a while say, wow, I bought one of your PR 781s or whatever. And man, this is all tinny. Well, now, wait a minute. Where's your bandwidth? Oh, no. Well, now, hold on. And I have to go through and help them understand that when they set that bandwidth, some of them only have 2.1. All the Collins radios are 2.1. You see, worse than that as far as, it's very articulate, but you're not going to get any low end. You're not going to sound like some DJ on the radio, no matter if you have one of our PR40s. It isn't going to happen. There's nothing wrong with the microphone. It's what the transmitter allows to be used. And so when I use a microphone or transmitter, I'm always in the 2.9, and I let the equalizer do what I need. And it's remarkable what you can do. The other thing is how to use a microphone. What are you talking about?
Thanks for letting me come aboard. KI14, KJ14. I
said, what do you, more articulate audio. I said, what are you going to do to talk into a microphone? I know how to talk into a microphone. Do you? I hear a lot of signals on the air like this, and it really bugs me because nobody ever, yeah, you sound just fine. No, you don't. No, you don't. Here's the reason. You see, it took me several years, and I still do it. I had to go to the library to read the findings of those 4,000 scientists. Today, you guys have it simple. It's called a Google. Google will help you. But you will learn things like this. Every time you double the distance of the source, you lose 6 decibel. Think about that. 6. If you double your power from 500 to 1,000 watts, that's only 3. You're going to lose 6 because you don't know where to put the microphone. And I hear guys on the air like this. Watch the screen and listen what happens. I'm not touching anything. I'm just bringing it out. And when I double the distance, look what happens. You're going to say, oh, well, Heil, that's no big deal. Just turn the gain up. Well, when I turn the gain up and do that, it sounds like I'm on a roller rink. And I hear a lot of that too. You see, being able to listen, it really bugs me when I get on the air and I hear guys that their audio could be so corrected if they would read the 4,000 scientist papers. And so you have to be able to use that microphone no more, pay attention, no more than 2 inches. And for that reason, when I got back into the business, we were the first company to bring booms to the ham radio industry. I did it selfishly for me because I'm always soldering, I'm doing things. I'm busy with my hands, and hey, I can put the mic right here. Now, the interesting part is when I started designing microphones, I made them with an omni front pattern. This was very, very interesting. You try that with your Shure. You try that with your Electro Voice. You try that with your matching Kenwood, with your matching, I don't care what the heck it is. Matching means it's only painted the same color. We're going to get into that big time in a minute. But all of our microphones, no, it's right there. And I did that purposely. It's omni because we're using it for this purpose. But it also has incredible rejection. We're going to get into that in a minute. But you really need to pay attention to where you put that microphone. One other thing that's very important are plosives. Your breath, and many guys have different levels. Some people have a lot of air exited when they speak. And when that comes about, we get those pops. And it just drives me nuts to hear people with pops because it's real simple to correct. Number one, if you have our microphone, you talk off to the side so the air is not going right into that voice coil. And as you heard, it solves it. If I put it right here, you get that popping. Over here, no. The other one, every one of our microphones come with this windscreen, but it's not just a piece of foam. It's not a thing you just buy for $1 on the internet. It is actual acoustic filter. And we go to great strides to have these made for us because it does not injure it. I hear guys on, take that stupid muff off, Bill, because you all muffled up. No, if that happens, you don't have the proper filter. You notice no change, none at all, other than we stop the air from going straight in. All of these are very simple things. And it always bugged me is before I got into this, why are we not hearing this? What's the deal? And the deal is that the manufacturers really didn't care. And they still really don't, some of them. But we solved that very easily. Well, in 1999, I got a letter. I got a letter from Dr. Inouye. Inouye Communications Icon. He had a picture of his station. Remember that great contest rig, the IC 781? It was the first one that had a screen. They actually had a screen in, well, it was a CRT actually. It was a great transmitter. He says, here's my station. And he showed a picture. And I about fell out of my chair. He had one of my EQ 200s. And he had one of our gold lines. This is the founder of Icon. I'm going, whoa. I'm thinking of new radio. I want to use your EQ. Now, he could have done this, but he just came to me to make sure that it was 160 and 2.5K. You know, he was just being kind, I guess, that he just didn't rob my idea. But hey, that idea is not mine. Good grief. If anybody, it's John Volkman in the 20s. But here we are. The Pro 1, the Pro 2, the Pro 3, all the way through their lineup. All the way through. We look at the 7851, 7610, the incredible 7300. And then you guys have one of these. Let me tell you, this is a miracle radio. It's a 7300 in a little box, 5 watts, battery operated, and it has D-Star and 2 meters in it. But it also has my equalizer. It has everything that the 7300 has. This is one incredible piece. Why they sent it to me is they don't build their microphones and headsets, and that's kind of a crazy little deal. So the plug configuration, and so they sent it to me, and away we went. And not only did we build a really cool headset for it, it's only $50 American. I got in trouble over that. I'll tell you about it in a minute. It has a push to talk switch. Plug it in and go. It's really great. But it also works on ICOM handhelds. We also build it for Yaesu handhelds, for Kenwood handhelds. And it's amazing. It always bugged me. I never did much in that market because all the stuff I heard was terrible and still is. It's terrible because it's all cheapo stuff. You know the story. I said, no, because what's going to happen is they're going to be putting that name on it. And I'm going, no, you aren't. We'll do this ourselves. And I'm very proud of those because we can finally make a handy talkie sound great. And of course, the 705 is amazing. We just come up with this little adapter. It's got all these special little plugs. Got a push to talk switch. You can plug any of our ICM microphones into here. And we had another one coming. You can plug our ICM into it. So that's all coming down the pike. It's all finished. We're just getting into production of some of those. But here's the icon. Let's check it out. The manuals aren't really clear. That's the sad part. None of them are. But here's the deal. What did I tell you a while ago? What's the first thing you do when you sit down to a radio? You adjust the transmitter bandwidth. And you know here, you see here the TBW. That's transmitter bandwidth. I set it 100 and 2900. Works great. Then we go up to the equalizer. I usually do a -2. Make it, you want to balance it out a little bit. +3 on the treble. That filter, that bass filter is at 160 hertz. We're going to roll off a little bit of that. And the treble is at 2.5, and we're going to boost the heck out of that. Now, what happens if you're doing contest work? Well, we want to do this. We're going to set the bandwidth at 500. You really want to come down on that. We don't need any low end. And so you set that at 500, the top end at 2500, and you go up to the bass, notch it all out, -5. Put all the treble you can get, +5. Is it pretty? Nope, not at all. We'll get into that in a minute, but it cuts through all the pileups and the noise. Contestants don't care how we sound. We just want to be the top dog. There it is in the 7610, same thing. They all have different looks, but they're the same filters. It's the same EQ. It's just how they present it. There's a -2, -3, the bass, and I'd already set the bandwidth. ICOM also asked me to build the proper microphone because they don't build their microphones. And they're pretty sad, these little bitty thingies. This thing is amazing. It's $100. And again, these are things we make very little money on. I get in big trouble from my wife, who owns the company, and my director of operations, because they want to, no. And I'm really impressed with this. I've never heard a bad report. If the radio's set up right, like we just said, it's amazing. And I really love it. ICM, it almost spells ICOM, right? Won't work on a Kenwood, won't work on a Yaesu. A year or so after Dr. Hasegawa and I started working on the Pro line, Pro 1, 2, Dr. Hasegawa comes to me. He comes in my booth at Dayton. He's a big guy. Heil, I don't want to do it better. I go, excuse me? I want to do it better. Oh, we talking about equalization? Yeah. And so I relayed to him that the only better is going to be a parametric. Yeah, that'd be good. I said, well, no, not so fast. Will be the problem. Education. Oh, we take care of that. Really? Okay. Well, they didn't. Look at the manual. I mean, I designed the equalizer for them, and I can't. It's all a bunch of graphs that don't mean a thing. What I'm going to tell you in the next couple of minutes, I could teach a 10-year-old child that knows nothing about ham radio to adjust a parametric EQ. Remember a few minutes ago, I showed you this little guy, 3 filters, frequency, level, width, remember? Okay. Well, that's exactly what I did in a smaller bandwidth. We didn't need all the, this wasn't going to be for recording. I did it for the 9000, my favorite transceiver of Yaesu. Why? Because it had everything I wanted. I was able to make them understand that we don't want that stupid little 8-pin CV connector. We want broadcast XLRs, and it's there. Check it out. Oh, I'm going, yeah, because it's balanced line audio. Balanced line audio helps you get rid of a ton of RF and noise because you've got a minus and a plus. They balance, they cancel. I'm going to get into that in a minute. Don't keep that thought about balanced lines, how they cancel. So what did I do else? I took off the name ALC on the meter. There is no ALC meter, but there's a mic gain meter. They did it for me. I was so thrilled. The 9000 had it all for 1 year. They went back to their stupid 8-pin and they went back to their ALC, but they didn't take the balance line apart and they didn't know it. If you know how to wire it, and we do, we make a special balance line cable so we can take balance line, wonderful 600 ohm microphones, not your CB junk, and it's balanced with our cables. Pretty cool. Well, here's what happened to their equalizer. First of all, you saw a little bit ago, there are 9 buttons, 9 controls. Well, I fuzzed out all of the stuff on the left because the equalizer is identical in all of them, from the 9000 all the way out through the new 101. They're identical. What I'm about to tell you is the same throughout the line, the 2000, the 5000, the 950, and the 101. Frequency, level, width. Don't forget that. That's what we have. We have 3 filters and a frequency. We have to adjust the level, and we have to adjust the width. So here we go. We're going to take that first filter. We're going to adjust it to 200. Then we're going to tell it, you're going to notch it. You're going to increase it. Let's take it down a little bit, -3 or 4. And the bandwidth, 2 octaves. Now the second one. Now, you see, here's where things get in trouble with Yaesu owners. And I am so sad when I talk to guys with Yaesus and they're in the default mode. Went to a lot of work to put those in there. But I understand because they've never been told how to adjust it. It's all of this stuff in the manual. Here it is. Why would I pick 200? We've already talked about that. We want to get rid of that low end. You know, the filters aren't like this. They aren't brick walls. Filters, you roll them off. So there's still a little bit of bass. You don't do that. Wouldn't it be neat if we could? We do for some of our contest things, but that's another story. But here's the deal. We set the frequencies 200 on the low end. Why do I set it at 900? Because in all of my thousands of shows and concerts, there's something about between 800 and 1200. It's a boxy sound. Do this to your ears. I want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of it. It's all about 900 hertz. So second filter, 900. We're going to minus that 3 dB, 2 octaves. I already know that you know. Boy, I hope you do. That third filter is going to be 2.5 and it's going to be +8. Yeah, baby. Because we want some articulation. We want to make sure that we take that 2.5 and put it up here. We need articulation. So the essence of sound is not simply down here where the essence of sound is gone. It's all about equalization and that 2.5 and everything around it. One other thing about a Yaesu that you really have to pay attention to, you have to set we've already talked, you have to set the bandwidth before you start, but you have to save it. If you don't save it, all of this is for naught. And you have to, most of them, you push the memory button to hold it for a second or two. But the filters, they look like this. This is what we do in a parametric filter. The low, we can move it around. We set it there. Is it 160? Mid-range is set at 900, 1,000 running there. And then you got 2.5. You can move it around, but we don't want to move it around. We're going to do 200, 900, and 2.5. I also have this on our website. You want to visit the website. There are so many things. There are just so many things on that site. There's about 50 pages called all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, all things Elecraft, all things Kenwood, with the adjustments and to help you figure out what you need to do. But this is the chart for the Yaesu. Now you notice it's out of the side, EQ1, EQ2. We don't care. That's just an assignment number, and they're different for each radio. And the other interesting thing down in the red, if you turn the compressor on, you have to readjust it. So you can readjust it for that. But let me let you in on a little secret. Do not use compression. Oh, do I cause a lot of arguments? You don't need it. If you have the right microphone, you have the right equalization, you do not need compression. And I want somebody to explain and show me why, because there have been some come to me and they failed because it doesn't do that much in ham radio. Oh, it makes you louder, but it also does all kinds of stupid things to your audio. You don't need that. Proper microphone, proper adjustment of the equalizer. That's important. And that is something I've all my life in ham radio. I pay attention to that. But please go to the site so you can go under our support page. There's a lot of neat stuff for you. There's even more stuff under there. But there's a lot of outboard equalizers. Julius Jones has a really good one there. You can see how I roll off the lows and increase that 2400. He has. Want to keep that together, and you feather out the 3200, and it works so good. There's another one you guys might know about, Sergi. Man, this is a great piece, and it's not very expensive, but it really works. UR6QW builds these, and he has several other really cool ones. It's all in rotary controls, but you can do the same thing. I really like it, and it's not very expensive. But there are some other things I want to jump to real quick. And that's about RF gain being wide open, adjusting the AGC. I got a little demonstration for you here. With the RF gain wide open and not realizing what benefit that we get from the AGC, take a listen. I never ever leave my RF gain wide open. Well, you won't pick up the... Oh, yeah, we will. Check this out. This is a really great demo for you.
New right now is really old technology that just kind of got forgotten. And somebody like Bob or anybody else would say, I wonder about this old... stuff that we used to do.
It's like FM.
Apply it to a new
lower that gain
application.
Slow down AGC. Now bring it back up. Listen.
Good. I love the technical abilities that come along with this hobby. The technician class was truly a technician class test. I like that part too. So very good comment.
A simple thing of learning how to adjust RF gain. I have to really honestly tell you, I never have it open. And it not turned all the way off, but just take it down a little bit and you'll be surprised how quiet your receiver gets. One thing that happened along about 2006, best friends Joe Walsh. Joe and I sitting at his kitchen table one day, and he said, you got to build me a better microphone. He got tired of that stupid ball thing that everybody used. And so Joe and I put our heads together, two ham radio operators. I came up with what we call the PR20. That's what I'm using here. Look at the front end of that thing. As I showed you a while ago, it's totally Omni. And no other microphone, any company, they're not doing this. They have an Omni mic, but it's Omni all the way around. No, we did it just on the front. And so that was a good deal. Joe said, yeah, but Heil, I want you to build me a microphone that will get rid of all these noises behind me I want some rear rejection. You remember that big antenna you had? I had 128 element J-beam up, came from your country. Talk about rear rejection. Whoa, he said, do that. Because I'd come through there in the bus and get on 2 meters. Man, I couldn't hear you. Do that to my microphone. Because my shivers and my Alexa voices don't. So okay. So we did. I'm going to unplug this one. This is the great PR40. I better watch it because this thing has more gain. It's really, it's very hot. But it gets down to 28 hertz on the low end. No other microphone and no other dynamic microphone can do that. Even the RA20 rolls off much above that, by an octave above it. But anyway, first of all, yes, you move it around, no problem. But Joe wanted a microphone that had no rear rejection coming through. It had high rejection. Watch this screen and listen. This microphone will present 40 dB, minus 40 dB from the back. Here we go. Oh, it's still working, but not from here. How did I do that? It was all about ham radio. And when I tell a lot of people that, they'll say, where'd you learn to do that? What kind of engineering do? I have no engineer. I'm a ham. I used antenna theory to design my microphone. What are you talking about, idiot? No. I learned it from phasing and all of that. This is a great little demonstration. You might have seen it before, but just to refresh. I have 2 microphones. They're both the same. They're PR22s. Paul Rogers of Bad Company wanted me to build him a better microphone that he could move around and that had great articulation. So he didn't have to rely on a lot of EQ because his sound man didn't know how to do that. These are totally alike. I'm using a Y cord. That's how I got here. No, I'm not playing any games. When I put them together, it's going to double my power. You ready for this? This is a biggie for you, if you really can understand. When I double my power, how many decibels is it going to come up? 3, just 3. So when I double my power, the meter up over my shoulder will go up 3 dB. It's kind of hard to see, but here it goes. 1, it's going to get pretty loud because this could have been adding a kilowatt amp to your station, right? Double your power. 1, 2, 3. What? Remember what we talked about listening, dissecting what you hear. Close your eyes, please. Really mentally tune in when I take away 3 dB. 1, 2, 3. No, the human ear cannot hear 3 dB difference. Oh, if we were in an echo chamber, maybe. But I have this magic little plug. A little plug. It's a balanced plug. Pin 2 is hooked to 3. And 3 is hooked to 2. Okay, big deal, Heil. What are you doing? It works just fine. Exactly the same. It sounds the same. When I talk in this one, the diaphragm goes down. When I talk to this one out of phase, because of that magic little plug, it comes up. What happens when you take 2 signals out of phase? They cancel. Nothing. They cancel. Sometimes I wish I would have hours on just this subject. Oh. Almost everything we do in ham radio has something to do with phasing. And I never read about it. That's what bugs me about some of this stuff. You have all these great handbooks. They don't do us any good. They're not teaching the real stuff. How about phasing? Wes Shum, Central Electronics, brought single sideband to ham radio in 1948. by the way, it wasn't Art Collins. He was 6 years late to the party. Wes Shum did it with his central electronics gear. And that's the gear that's right there. I built that when I was 18 years old. It's a phasing rig. We have to go in and null. There's two controls, just like you saw here, one's in, one's out. And you have to absolutely go in and by phasing, get rid of the carrier. Same thing with the sideband. How you get rid of the other sideband? It's out of phase. Some idiot piles on top of your frequency. You don't care what you are. You hit the notch filter on your receiver. How's that work? It takes his signal out of phase. See you later, buddy. How did Dr. Yagi build the Yagi antenna? He had no modeling and all that. He had a field strength meter and he built a driven element resonant and a whole bunch of aluminum. He mounted that driven on a boom. It went up so far, so long, and by messing around, can you think how long this took him? Thank you so much, Dr. Yagi. He could get gain. He could get 3 dB. He could get 6 dB with another one. But he made one longer and so far behind in the sweet spot, it was out of phase from the driven. Bingo. Well, we could do this with wires. I'm going, yeah. I hear a lot about our wonderful contest stations that are running these monster antennas. I figure, oh my gosh, I could never have a phased array. Yeah, you can. Doesn't take much room for 40 meters. But here's a 75 meter one. Put up 2 telephone poles. They were 64 foot apart, 64 foot high. The down lead length, there were 0.66 velocity factor. That's important. 126 foot long, each of them. But look what I did. I hook them all together through little T's. And that red you see, that's the delay line. That's the phasing line. See, if you didn't have the word phase, the word time says it exactly. We're just timing that a little slower. So we take our remote relay out. This thing was 500 feet from my shack. When we rotate that to the left, that's our driven element. It's getting all of the RF straight through, but the rear is delayed. Now, if I move it to the right, I'm going the other direction. This is a great demonstration of a phased array. It is wonderful. We have just completed the installation of a 75 meter phased array antenna system consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directive from east to west, we use a delay line, a 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried. And just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do. Mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after you done mow it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm going to have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it because, if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it's looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now. And
the system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
Yeah, well, I see they introduced boy on it, and that is their form of portable. What that is, your wife to your computer.
I think you understand what I said earlier. Preamp done doing good. But boy, did that phased array. Did you see that on the screen? It was amazing. Some of these signals are 10, 15 dB, one way or the other. I loved it. I put it up so I could talk to my buddies in California on AM, and it works. And if I want to talk to somebody in Connecticut, we're right in the middle of the country. I'm 15 miles straight west of the arch of downtown St. Louis, right on Route 66, getting ready for the big Route 66 event coming up next month. But anyway, it's just a really a neat thing, and it's easy to do. The 40 meter one I put up in the backyard here, it's only 33 foot apart and 33 foot for the dipoles, and it really works too. I used Ameritron's switching network. I also used, on the other one, I used the DX Engineering. They're both very good, really good relays. But I don't like rotary switches. I hate rotary switches. So I went to Antique Electric Supply. You might want to write this down. Antique Electric Supply in Mesa, Arizona. And I bought a bunch of Les Paul guitar switches. And so now, if I want to go east to west on 75, and what's even better, I could have them both on during receive and find out which one is really going to be strongest. Sometimes you can have different things. I also use these behind me on this station to switch all the other antennas. And the colored ones are to switch the transmitters. 35 relays behind me. It's crazy stuff. But I just love phasing, and there's so much to it. But one of the other things, of course, is building. I love to build. And the last year and a half that I was on Ham Nation, we had this pine board project, and I'm sure some of you heard about it. Maybe you built it. I hope you did. But we started out building a power supply up in the left, building a microphone preamp with equalization, the two purple knobs. Of course, it had to have EQ, and a 5-watt 40 and 75 meter transmitter. There it is all together in the bottom. It's great. And the thing that made it so easy was a guy by the name of Gene W4IQN. He was a retired graphic artist at General Motors. Look at those graphs. They were better than the old Heathkit graphs. You didn't need a schematic. You just get that piece of pine board out there and start making it happen. Well, again, the ARRL heard about it, and it became the cover award and the lead article in January of 2019. We've got over 1,000 people that have built them, and the reason we know that is Antique Electric Supply sell kits. You can buy a pine board power supply, a pine board mic EQ, or a pine board transmitter. I got called down really bad in the first beginnings of that. Each week we'd come on Ham Nation, all these doom and gloomers. Oh, you're going to kill somebody with electric. Yeah, okay. Each one of the shows we would go through and talk about respecting high voltage. That is very important. And it's worked well. Well, one of my other gripes about things that were happening, and I work for these guys, but I could never convince any of them to talk to me about receiver audio. Our receiver is fine. I'm not talking about selectivity. I'm not talking about bandwidth. I'm talking about speakers and amplifiers. Even the $15,000 ones, they have maybe 2 watts, but they're all at 0.1. No, they're at 10% distortion. My gosh, they're terrible. And when I question them about, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. It gives us listener fatigue. And once you don't have that, whoa, I said, I have to do something about it. And so I did. First of all, external speakers are the biggest joke in this market. They're all little Japanese, Chinese pieces of crap. They use a little 3-inch or 4-inch speaker, Nubi magnet. And then you drive it with that 1 watt at 10%. No, let's do something much better. So Paul Klipsch taught me a lot about these kind of things. We built thousands of speaker cabinets, and he really helped me during those times. First of all, you take the speaker outside in free air and you do a cone resonance, and you find out where that cone is resonant. Then you're able to adjust the cabinet to meet that. So there's no phase distortion. The speaker doesn't move. It's supposed to be very, very equal. But you think these little cheap things? No, they aren't. So I said, we got to do something about this, Heil. And so I did. We also have a 3.5-inch titanium tweeter, and they're driven by that amplifier. Balanced line in, and it's 25 watts at 0.1%. We're talking hi-fi specs here, but that's okay. It had to be done, and yet it cost about the same as the garbage stuff that's out there. Well, now what else are you going to do, Heil? Well, what else we're going to do, we have to build the equalizer for all of this. And so here's what we're going to do. I figured it was very simple for me to come up with an equalizer, but we went far beyond that. First of all, the parametric receive audio system has 2 headphone amplifiers. And these 2 headphone amplifiers are a miracle. They're not wide together. They're not taken off. They're actual independent amplifiers. So you can have a logger, you can have an operator. But I am discovering there's even a better use of those 2 outputs. You can have a left headphone speaker here and a right one here, and you can balance them up because many of us have a hearing imbalanced. No longer with the PRAS. And they're all driven by this incredible equalizer. And it's what I've been talking about all day. The outsides, 6K and 160 hertz are just shelving, plus or minus 12 dB, 6K, 106. You can't change those frequencies. You don't need to. Please trust me. I spent a couple of years figuring out exactly where I wanted them. And so we come to the mid. The mid is a parametric. That means you can change the parameters of this filter. It starts off at 400 and it goes up through a K, 2K, and 2.5K to 4K. You're going to discover when I play these recordings, when we hit 2.5K, the whole world opens up. This is gain, so we don't want to, we want some gain in that filter, so we'll put that there and leave it. And it just irritates me that we don't get to hear some of these things that really make a difference.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo, EI ATLB calling advice.
Here are a couple of usual single sideband signals that are mushy and bassy, difficult to understand. You can add some speech articulation just by adding some 2.5 mid-range.
The 2 meter, a sideband, but they're just not, it's not the same as a rig built, just for 2 meter sideband. The receivers will never compare. So it's kind of nice that, again, ICOM technology. They were nice enough in my county, which was the worst, by the way, paid in the area. They gave me 5 years seniority, but I was basically starting at the bottom. So many times people who spend 20 years in the Navy or whatever the military is and retire, people say, well, you got it made.
It's
no,
flat.
You don't.
This is a D104 coming up. It's all highs. A lot of times we hear these kind of things and go, whoa, irks on your mind, let me tell you. So we want to add some bass.
I speeded up the tape, and sure enough, I can copy it.
I had a lot of fun the other night.
There it is the way you hear it.
I thought, well, I wonder if I can copy that at about 30 words a minute, and so I speeded up the
There it
tape.
is flat.
Sure enough, I can copy it.
But here comes the good stuff. This is the way you hear this. Listen.
Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo. PIATLB calling advice.
It's flat.
For Sierra, Germany. Hope I have it right. From Ireland. India, Alpha Mike, over. Hello, C2, 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 20, C2, C2, Echo India is Bravo, Lima Bravo. PIATLB calling advice.
No argument. This is an amazing product. We also are seeing them sold to people for televisions, me being one of them. Televisions are terrible today. Their audio is just, and so I fixed it for many hundreds of people that are buying this for televisions. And I'm so happy that we can bring things together that we really need. And that's what we're doing. And I'm very excited about it because I get a lot of email, phone calls, and I'm on the air a lot. And guys telling me, my gosh, you gave me my radio back. And some of them get pretty emotional because they can't listen to the radio. The PRAS solves that. It's all about the proper technology that my wonderful mentor, Paul Klipsch, brought to me. And guided me to those 4,000 scientists. And I want to guide you there. Go look it up. Early Bell Lab studies. Wow. And a lot of this is in a handbook that I wrote. If you don't have this, you might want to get it. All the dealers have them, or you can get it from our website. A lot of clubs are buying cases of this and giving it to the new licensees, because it really is something that we have. Oh, what's going on over here? Well, somebody just fired up over there. What we have for so many of the clubs is they're using it to teach. There's things in there you never read. And again, I didn't write it. I just compiled it. They're notes from all of these great mentors I had. You can go to our website, heilsound.com, and download this book. It all starts with the microphone. You'll learn a lot. And we're very blessed that a few years back, Heil Sound is the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That mixer that I'm standing in front of was one that was built in England. IES and myself, we put our heads together and built this great mixer. It's the first and only quad mixer, because Pete Townsend wanted to write an opera called Quadrophenia, and he wanted me to be able to build a system to move the Roger's voice around the hall, and we did it. That one white speaker you see, we had 6 of those in the back, and that's actual one of the speakers that we did on the tour. We have our own amplifiers and all of the things. I have a parametric EQ that we built in that rack. Back on the other back side of it, that's a mixer we built for Sun, and that was used for some ZZ Top and a whole bunch of other people. We were the first company to do monitors, and also have the first talk box there. And it's really interesting about the monitors. I forgot. When you take a speaker and we're on a big stage and I can't hear that guy over there, because what in a big system comes out, nothing's on the stage. You can't hear it. It's all mushy. So you need a monitor. Well, you can't put a speaker right here because it's going to feed back, right? Wrong. Ham Radio said, no, we can do this. If you ever see early Grateful Dead pictures, we took 2 microphones and taped them together. One of them was for the front system. The other one was for that, and it was out of phase. You saw a while ago, what can you do out of phase so it didn't feed back from the other one? Ham Radio. It guided a lot of things, and I'm very, very blessed and honored that I was able to learn all of this from my great ham radio, and I'm still learning. I was just awarded a PhD degree. It's an honorary degree in music and technology from Missouri University. Wow. You don't ever think about these things, or at least I don't. And when they happen, I'm so honored and blessed and actually just blown away. It's like, why me? But it's all about the fact that we're doing things that a lot of the big companies aren't, and it's all about ham radio. I really thank you guys for having me. I hope that this was beneficial. There's always so much more to talk about, but I like to bring some of the true beings of ham radio to us. We have any questions?
Turn the light back on. Yeah, I was gonna, is that you? I think.
Sorry, John. You were first, but I'd like to ask a question in a minute. I have to go in 5 minutes though, because I've got.
You go
got to
first,
meet
Kev.
someone.
You go
Is that all
first.
right?
Yeah, sure.
That was really interesting, Bob. Thank you so much. I have to be honest, a lot of it went over my head. It was quite a lot of information to take on board, but I'll probably go and watch the video again and sort of take some of that on board. I'm particularly interested. I'm a returning ham. I was been offline for 30 years and just in the process of coming back. You heard a little bit about my issues about the antenna, but I've got an old, a second-hand Yasu 757. I don't know if you're familiar with that rig. Yep. So that place you refer to online, would that tell me how I can set that up properly?
Well, the 757 didn't have any equalization in it.
Didn't it? Okay.
No. About all you can do is set even this. I'm not sure that it has variable bandwidth.
I don't know.
You want to set it as wide as possible, and that's only going to be 2.4 probably.
Okay.
So the only thing you're down to is the microphone.
Well, I've got a pretty decent microphone and a bit of a little mixing desk. So hopefully by playing around with that, I can get a better quality.
Yeah. Make sure you don't overdrive the mixer and don't overdrive the ALC with the mixer, because you got a lot going in. But that's really basically it. It should be pretty good.
Thanks, Bob. And thank you again. I'm sorry I have to shoot off. I've got something else on, but it's lovely to hear from you. And thanks, guys, John and Andy particularly. Catch up with you soon, all right?
Okay.
Good to hear you, Kev. I'm going to turn my mic off. The cuckoo clock's just about to go on 9 hours, so it's going to be 9 cuckoos coming up, Bob. And there's no equalization on the cuckoo clock, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'll let someone else ask a question.
Well, thank you, Bob. Very interesting. I've got several of your microphones, and I happen to own a Yaesu FTX 5000. So I'm going to go tomorrow and set it up as you just said. Thanks very much for a very informative video. Thank you again.
Well, I appreciate that. You want the perfect microphone for that is our 781. And the 781 it's it's a PR40, but I rolled the last octave off. I love it. And it's great for any kind of Kenwood, Elecraft, anything for a dynamic microphone. It's absolutely wonderful. That will work great. I love the 5000, but go to my website and you'll see how to set it up. Just remember, all the settings are the same, just at the assignment numbers are different.
Okay, there. Thanks, saying Bob. I've got one of your quite a few of your microphones, and I'll be playing around with them. But I'll set up the radio as you said. Thanks again. Look forward to hearing you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I'd just like to thank you, Bob, for a very interesting talk. You and I are of an age, I think, I've been licensed since 58.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things, you learn with experience and also with good advice from amateurs who've been around a few years. But I'm definitely interested in the PARS system. I believe it's now available, so I should be looking at that for sure. A very impressive piece of equipment, something that will be added to my shack for sure, Bob. So thanks again, and
thank you.
As ever, good luck and stay safe, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, Martin Lynch and Waters and Stanton and Moonwrecker, they all have our stuff. So anything I can help you with, don't be shy. Send me an email. I get them by sometime to dozens each day, and I answer them all. It might take me a little bit, but I'm here to help you. Don't be shy.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Bob, and thanks. You have a good day. What's left of it on your side.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah. Richard, do you want to say anything, Dick?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Just ask
No,
you.
no, I was just saying, no, I haven't got a question, but I will say, Bob, thank you very much for another very interesting, what you call it? I don't know, what do you call it? Talk, that's the word. I couldn't think of it. But yes, I've got the 7100, IC 7100, and it has got the very same equalizer built into it. But I can't remember what I've got it set to, so I'll have to have a look tomorrow.
Yeah.
But all very interesting stuff, Bob. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a great little radio. I really like it.
It covers all bands. It goes from what I call DC to ultraviolet.
That's right. That's great.
I've got a question for you, Bob.
Okay.
So I'm developing some hearing deterioration. Now that's a combination of things. That's from going to all these raves in the 1980s, mid 80s, and being too close to the speakers with no ear protection. And as a young man, you don't tend to worry about things like that. And also through armed forces and not having the best ear defense at the time, and explosions and that. So I'm finding now that I can really suffer ear fatigue after a relatively short time, or struggle just having the audio on the rig. Now, I've tried various ways of trying to enhance the audio. I've tried the amplified speakers. I've tried the Icon speakers. I've tried every type of speaker you can possibly imagine, and I've failed on every count. So will the PRAS actually work for me in reducing? It's just the noise that's coming in, because if I'm amplifying the audio, I'm also amplifying the noise that's coming in without any way of kind of cutting that back.
See, here's the deal. You're amplifying everything.
Yeah.
And when you use the little stupid speakers, and they're all stupid, I'm telling you, I work for these companies. I don't understand. They should make them better, but they're still using that 1 watt amp. And they have no way of equalizing it. And even if they do, they're amplifying the noise and everything. But with this parametric, did you not hear the demo of that station in Ireland? I mean, he just comes flying out of that speaker. because we increased that 2.5. You just, I swear I talk about it so much. I get some guys say, you talk about that all the time. I know I do, because it's so important. And I learned that from 4,000 scientists. Now you want to go argue with 4,000 scientists? I don't think so. I think A&T and Bell Labs, not A&T really, but the Bell Labs guys, they knew what they were doing. And you're going to find there's a lot of different things out there, and they all claim to do this and that. None of them work like that. I know I've had them A-B'd before I started this project. Do I need to reinvent the wheel? No. So I didn't reinvent the wheel. I invented the car and the body to carry the wheel, because you heard the demos. I mean, it speaks for itself. But I think you will really enjoy it, and it'll work great for you.
Fantastic. Great. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
David, do you want to pick up the next question? G4NOW, go ahead.
Oh, hello, Bob. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fine. Yep. I just read, I gather you do organ recitals on a shortwave station in Tennessee, is it? Are you still doing those?
You talking about the thing on WTWW?
Yes, I am indeed. Thank you.
I do it from right there. It's about 10 feet in front of me. Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. And we do them every Saturday night at 7 o'clock. Sometimes it's 7:15. It's not NBC. So when Ted gets around to it, but no, yeah, we're still doing them. Last Saturday, we did 2 hours. So, yep, we're getting a lot of response, so many emails and stuff. So that's great. I enjoy bringing the theater organ to people that sometimes have never heard it.
Thank you. I'll make a point of trying to see if I can get her. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Send me an email and make sure you get it.
Okie doke. I will.
5.085.
Yep. Thanks indeed. Thank you, Bob, for a great talk as well. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, I was going to say myself that, well, I've got 2 or 3 things I want to say. First of all, the headsets for the handhelds. I bought a couple of those, one for the ASU and one for the ICOM, when they were released over here in the UK from Martin Lynch, I believe. And they almost, I don't think I'm over exaggerating if I say it makes them a different rig. The handhelds are totally different when you're using this microphone. And because of that, I invested in a couple of other mics from you. The one I want to get at some point between now and Christmas, maybe I'll get it as a Christmas present, as my wife is sitting in front of me by about 15, is the one for the ICOM 7300. Because I think it's going to make a big difference for that rig. So first,
that's the baby right here.
Yeah.
The ICM.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's as you said, it's matched for the rig, and it's got to be with right settings. Are you going, Dick? See you.
I'm off, mate. Yep. Very good evening to you, Bob. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I'll see everybody later. Monego.
Cheers. So anyway, so I want to do that. But the other thing I've learned from, well, 2 other things I wanted to say I've learned from. One is I've got a Yaesu FT2000. And I'm ashamed to say I've never changed the equalization on the rig, because as you said yourself, people don't know. So I'm definitely going to do that. That's going to make a huge difference, and I'm also going to save it. So that's the key. And I guess the final thing I wanted to say is I'm really impressed with the PARS. That's amazing. And I think I got this right. You've got a separately, you designed separately a speaker that goes with that. Is that
yes? Yeah. Yeah. It's to do right.
Yep, I see it.
Right there.
Yeah. So, had you ever thought of? I mean, was there a reason why you did them separately, separate units? Is that
no? Because we sell a number of just the equalizer because they use them with headphones and they don't use speakers.
Oh, simple as
And
that.
so,
Yeah.
so, you know, why burden them with buying a speaker that they'll never unbox?
No. So if I got a PARS and I want to have one set of headphones, left ear for one frequency or one, and the other one for the other side, do you do a Y lead?
No, you're gonna need two of the equalizers. They're
right.
mono devices, so you just need two of them, and they stack very nicely. Because I have a number of guys doing SO2 and contesters, and they stack them together.
Okay, that answers that question then. Thanks, Bob. And once again, I mean, that's a fantastic talk. Thank you so much. Learned an awful lot, and so pleased to that you're kind enough to do these for us. And I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else for any more questions?
I would just say I'd add to what Bob was saying about the ICM mic. Well, I mean, I purchased one on the last talk, and I would say it is absolutely fantastic. I'm finding that by using the settings on the radio that's given us the guide on the website and what you were talking about this evening, just by using those settings and using that ICM, I'm really punching through on many pileups. I mean, I'm getting straight through, and often than not, I'm getting in on my first call. So it's working. It's definitely working. Yeah, I would recommend that. That's probably one of the most greatest weapons in the arsenal for getting through on
that's
pilot.
right.
Without a doubt.
You got it.
One of the things with the PRAS, do people, and I mean, I don't know whether it's obviously something that's in the shack. Do they have, because it's an amplified speaker, does it amplify if you've got any existing RF noise in the shack? Would it amplify that? And if so, that you're aware of, and if so, how would you come against that? How would you?
Well, once in a while, but I mean, it's 1 out of 100.
Right.
And then when I talk to them, I find out that they're using some off-fed thing and no tuner or no resonant antenna. They don't have anything grounded. We have ground lugs on both the speaker, the PRAS, and that should go to your radio ground. All that, if you have it all proper. No, I mean, this guy, I run full kilowatt plus and all the bands. I don't have any problem. I got another one over there. I think you can see it because it's tucked behind the receiver. No problem on AM. That's a big, steady 500 watt carrier and 1500 watt PEP. So it all is about how clean your station is. It's not how dirty the PRAS is, because the PRAS is not. But like anything else, if you have some stray RF, any kind of amplifier is going to pick it up.
Of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, no, without a doubt. Okay, well, I think I'm going to get one of those then.
Send me a note. Let me know how you like it.
Yeah, I will do. Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do the same.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks very much for your time, and we're very, very grateful as always. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll hope to meet you again in maybe sometime next year. That'd be absolutely fantastic.
That'd be great.
Well, you pick out a subject, and we'll be here. Because there's all kinds of things. That's what's happening now. This is number, I think it's 219 that I've done since February of 2019. This is number, I think it's, 219 of these, and 220 tomorrow night. And the thing is that you can't go to shows. You can't do that since this pandemic hit. And I feel sad because I want to pass on some of this great information that I've been blessed to be laid upon me, and it needs to be done. And what I hear of some of these talks is mostly all gibberish, or somebody up there giving you a spiel about a product. Fine, but you better teach me something while you're doing this. And so I'm really happy to do it. But now they're coming back a second. One of them's coming back a third time. They pick out just one antennas. I have a whole deal on antennas. It's really cool. And, you know, stuff like that. So let me know and we'll be here.
Perfect. Cheers, Bob.
Okay.
Yeah, cheerio to you. And thank you very much for all your time.
Now, if you got 2 minutes more,
yep.
Let me tell you what I do to end all of these. You can end it when you want, but I'm going to go sit down over here and I'll play a little couple of minutes. How you like that?
That'd be great, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do that. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Always know I'm here for you. Send me an email. Don't be shy. No questions dumb. Just get to me and we'll make it happen. Okay. Got to dial up a couple of buttons here. Okay, got it. 7-3, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Wish it could be in person, but maybe someday. Bye-bye for now.
Yeah, 73, Bob.
73, Bob.